Let's bring in Ed Husic and Kelly O'Dwyer. I want to return to the issue of Manus Island firstly with you both. Ed Husic, I might start with you. Do you think we should still be sending asylum seekers to Manus Island in light of what we've seen this week?
The first thing that we've got to do, David, is ensure that we get to the bottom of exactly what happened. There's still a lot of details that need to be discovered or found out, and the reason for this importance obviously lies to the fact that we need to know what needs to change in the way that things are managed on Manus Island, but also it forms an important part of our regional framework on managing this issue. So we do need to find out what's going on.
So until all of that is established, until we do that, should we keep sending people there or not?
Well, I think that's ultimately a decision the government's going to need to make, but I just make the point that Manus does form an important part of our response to a really difficult issue that crosses borders on so many levels.
But do you think we should send people there until that's settled?
Well, again, the government can make the decision if they believe.
Do you have a view?
Once they get the view about and get the inquiry completed and get all the details, then they're going to need to make an assessment. But again, we'll wait and see what happens. The issue that I have with the government is that they have hand on heart claims one day that things won't occur, and then have to apologise hand on heart in 24 to 48 hours. So clearly, there's some issue with management of this system by Minister Morrison.
Kelly O'Dwyer, can Australia guarantee the safety of those in Manus Island?
Well, we'll certainly put all the procedures in place that we need to ensure that people who are sent to Manus Island are safely housed and that their asylum seeker claims can be processed in a fair and efficient manner. Can I just respond very quickly though to what Ed said? I mean, Ed has just belled the cat on the Labor position on asylum seeker policy and immigration policy, which is that they have flip-flopped on this, the whole 7 years that we have seen them form a policy. They have gone from supporting offshore processing to not supporting it to supporting it again, and now we hear from Ed that they're not going to support it.
Well, I think he said it's up to the government to satisfy itself through these inquiries. But just the question to you, can we guarantee the safety of the asylum seekers or not?
Well, we're certainly making sure that we have got all the arrangements in place to ensure that people are safe. Now, if people want to, though, engage in violent protest and in violent demonstrations, then obviously they put themselves and others at risk.
Well, if they want to engage in that, perhaps, but what if it turns out the violence is being inflicted upon them?
Well, from what we have heard from the Minister's statement, there were a number of agitators, a number of people who were engaged in violent protest, who went outside of the camp that is there, and obviously determining exactly what has occurred is something that will take place over the coming days. But it appears that those that did sustain injuries sustained that outside of the centre.
Are you, Kelly O'Dwyer, concerned at all about this situation? And it's bipartisan, really, that we send asylum seekers there. They are basically there indefinitely, whether they're found to be refugees or not. None of them have yet been processed. Even if they are found to be refugees, they're stuck on PNG, not necessarily in the centre, but somewhere else. Isn't this going to lead to the sort of despair and volatility and tension that we've seen this week?
We've been very clear about our policy all along, that there is the right way of applying for asylum to come to Australia. There are lots of other people who sit in refugee camps right across the world who also want to have a new life in this country, and we see no reason to provide people smugglers with particular incentives and a particular product to sell to other vulnerable people in order to come here. So we've tried to take the incentives off the table, which is what we're doing with offshore processing, combining with turning the boats back where it's safe to do so, and we believe that that is the right policy for Australia.
Let's turn to the breaches of territorial waters. Ed Husic, do you believe the report these were all accidental breaches, all 6 of them, on the part of the crew involved on each ship?
Our Defence Forces respond to the orders of the day, and if the government is trying to implement a policy that everyone's been saying is fraught with problems, that is this whole notion of towbacks, and that it won't work as cleanly or as simply as what the coalition's been promising, then it's wrong to blame the Defence Forces for what occurs when they're just trying to implement a policy that, as many people say, has holes in it. I
so
think
when
we would
this,
have,
when this
I
report
think- I
says
just
that
wanna
yeah,
I was just going to make a point, David. I mean, the issue that I have is that, can you imagine the discussion we would have on AM Agenda right now if the boot was on the other foot and it was the Indonesians undertaking incursions in our territorial waters? I mean, these are serious issues that affect the relationship with Indonesia that we need to work with on this matter, and this government is adamant that it'll just do whatever it wants on this matter and not seek regional cooperation and then try and blame someone else for the problems that arise.
So when this report that's been released late yesterday shows that the government's policy direction was clear, not to enter territorial waters, and it was actually errors by the crew, do you believe that or not?
No, I think, you know, like our Defence Forces, and having sat on inquiries and seen the work that they do, they work under really difficult circumstances, and what they're trying to do is give effect to a policy that has holes in it, that is problematic, and that is causing unnecessary tension with our biggest neighbour.
So you don't believe this report?
No, I'm saying that the Defence Forces have tried to meet the government's policy, and they're now being blamed for, in effect, the government implementing a policy that's got problems with it.
The report says the government's policy is not the problem, it was the crew.
Yeah, well, of course, it's easy to sheet home, and I think it's wrong to hide behind the Defence Forces and try and blame them. The government's got to step up and accept responsibility for failure of policy.
Okay, so you don't believe the report?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying I'm not going to blame the Defence Forces, and I don't think anyone else should.
Kelly O'Dwyer, it's not stated in this report, but it seems fairly obvious, doesn't it, that it was the towback policy, at least somehow, behind this. There were no incursions that we're aware of prior to the government's policy being put in place. Now there have been 6 in the space of less than 2 months. Was this a result of the towback policy?
Look, I'm not in a position to speculate on that. They're questions that you'll need to put directly to the Minister. What I can say, though, is that on the 6 occasions where incursions did occur, we have rectified the issues surrounding why those incursions took place, and we will ensure that they don't take place again. We've also apologised directly to Indonesia for the incursions that took place, and frankly, that's the end of the matter.
All right, we've got to take a break. I want to talk about jobs after this, and also the talk of overhauling Medicare to make those who can afford to pay more, pay more.
The ivory trade, habitat destruction, native animals in distress.
I want to make a difference. I found a way.
Find us at ifaw.org.
I've been eating chia for a number of years. When I have that in the morning, I don't feel like I need anything else. It's become like a staple for me. I just feel good.
If only staying cool outside was this easy. With a 3-layered insulated Stratco Cool Deck, you can enjoy the outdoors in complete comfort. Now, thanks to Cool Deck, you'll find life so much cooler under a Stratco Outback. Stratco, making life better outdoors.
You know how easy it is to now shop at Mitre 10? That easy. You get great online deals and collect them in store.
Clean up on 8 kilos of Omo, just $40
at mitre10.com.au.
Monuments Men.
On March 13,
we have been tasked to find treasure that the Nazis have stolen.
George Clooney.
This is our history, and it's not to be stolen or destroyed.
Matt Damon.
We gotta go!
Bill Murray.
You're gonna miss me so much when this is all over.
John Goodman.
I've never shot anyone. Have you? I'm about to.
And Cate Blanchett.
This is my life.
Based on the untold true story, The Monuments Men.
I stepped on a landmine.
Why did you do something like that?
It was a slow day.
In cinemas March 13.
My mum tells fibs. I know she does. She pretends that she doesn't like Thatcher, our cat. But secretly she does. She says stuff like, he's done it again, and you're not allowed in there. Then she goes and gives him a cuddle. She even lets him on the bed. I know she worries about him because she never forgets to put his protection stuff on each month. He's not really interested in the rest of us. but he loves her.
The Advantage family. We understand each other.
Got to be seen at work? We've got the vehicles and deals that'll catch your eye. Right now, there's high-vis deals on Volkswagen commercial vehicles. Amarok single cab TSI 300 with free tray from $23,990 drive away. There's free on-roads cap price servicing and 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty across the Amarok range. And free on-roads cap price servicing and 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty on commercial vehicles. High-vis deals on Volkswagen commercial vehicles. Standout value right now at participating dealers.
At officeworks.com.au you can get all of this, any of this, all of this, and any of this from one of those. Or one of these. Or one of these.
Choose from over 20,000 items online anytime.
We're talking this morning to Labor MP Ed Husic and the Liberals' Kelly O'Dwyer. Kelly O'Dwyer, your home state Victoria, it's been a bad start to the year for manufacturers there. Toyota is going to, well, has announced that it's shutting down. The entire car industry will come to a close. Alcoa this week sacking nearly 1,000 workers. The Prime Minister's been down there yesterday talking to the Premier, the Industry Minister, working out what to do. What does the state need?
Well, they need a government that gets the framework right so that business can invest in their business and employ people. This is what's been wrong for the past several years under the Greens Labor government. We have seen increased taxes such as the carbon tax imposed on business, and currently the Labor opposition is still standing in the way of getting rid of the carbon tax, which of course...
So that'll fix everything, removing the carbon tax?
No, I'm just simply saying that is one element of getting the framework right, stopping the increase on energy prices that, for instance, adds to the cost of manufacturing in my home state of Victoria, which is a very, very important manufacturing centre for Australia.
What else needs to happen?
Another example is that we need to get other taxes down, taxes like the company tax rate down. We're going to do that on the 1st of July 2015 by taking it down by more than 1.5%.
But you're also putting a levy that'll put it back up again on all big companies.
Well, no, it's not an additional levy. It won't change for the very, very top companies.
Yeah, but they're not getting a tax cut, are they? All the big companies aren't getting a tax cut.
It will be reduced for the substantial majority of companies, though, which will allow them to, again, put that money back into their businesses and to
just not
people.
The big employers. But is there anything additional to this, though? Because companies know that and they're closing down. So what else is the government going to do?
Well, what we want to be able to do is start building productivity enhancing infrastructure. Getting a plan to build that infrastructure, particularly in Victoria, is going to be critical, and that's going to employ a huge bulk of people who would otherwise not have such employment. The problem
Should that
is,
include Metro Rail? Should the federal government play a role there?
Yeah, if I can just finish that sentence, David. The problem is, though, of course, is that we want to make sure that the taxpayer is getting value for money. So every dollar that we spend investing in infrastructure, we want to make sure is dollars going directly into that infrastructure. Unfortunately, though, we know the construction industry, particularly in Victoria, has been beset by so many problems. Industrial strikes, which is increasing the cost of building infrastructure, and we've seen standover tactics and intimidation on building sites. That's why we want to also bring back the Australian Building and Construction Commission, which will actually add to our productivity by more than $6 billion.
Ed Husic, without getting bogged down in the carbon tax debate, what do you really think needs to happen to help manufacturers?
Well, I couldn't help but noticing that those one-liners in opposition just scrape against the eardrum winning government. I mean, you had Kelly there a few moments ago try to blame the carbon tax when Alcoa came out quite clearly and said that this wasn't having the impact on their decision, that what was having the impact are things, for example, like the high dollar and low aluminium prices. And what's the response of the government? We're going to ease your cost pressures by reducing company tax.
Should they do?
Hang on a second. I mean, what they're saying is that they'll ease pressures on companies by reducing company tax in 2015. Well, that's a whole, more than 12 months of waiting for that. And as you rightly point out, they'll add to the cost of business through the PPL, and what they should be doing is ensuring that they work with industry, particularly in regional areas, to see what can be done to protect jobs. I think there are good reasons why governments co-invest with particularly companies in regional areas to see what can be done by using corporate injection and corporate investment alongside government investment in protecting jobs. They refused, for instance, in in being able to provide modest co-investment with SPC, and on top of that tried to then bully SPC and say they needed to cut wages by 40%. And clearly wages growth in this country, as has been pointed out, is not excessive, is actually below and has been fairly moderate in terms of inflation. And this government is always seeking to point the finger and not come up with a jobs plan.
We could spend another half hour on this, I know, but we're running out of time. I've got to get your thoughts too on Medicare. Peter Dutton, the Minister, has been talking about an overhaul and building the case for a co-payment for visiting the doctor. No decision on that yet, but Kelly O'Dwyer is, we know that health costs are rising, and as he points out, unsustainably so. Is a co-payment to see the GP a good idea?
Medicare is very much under pressure, and I think Peter Dutton actually said yesterday in a speech that he delivered that we've seen healthcare costs increase over 10 years by more than 122%, totalling around about $140 billion. It's clearly not sustainable, and it's very clear that we need to look at the options around that. Now, the Commission of Audit, I understand, is looking at a number of those options, and no doubt we will see the recommendations that they make to government in the not too distant future.
Ed Husick?
Two things. Firstly, in my part of Western Sydney, 99% of the doctors in our area bulk bill. And there's a reason for that. Clearly, there's an issue with the ability of people in parts of Western Sydney to necessarily, if they were to do it on their own, they'd find it hard to fund their own healthcare, and they rely on Medicare for their healthcare needs. To propose to them that they pay a co-payment of the amount that's being put forward by the government or is being considered puts pressure on those people in Western Sydney, when we've had previously the opposition or the coalition when in opposition going on railing against means testing of private healthcare, which is inconsistent with their position now. And the second thing is, in relation to Peter Dutton, Peter Dutton, when we were trying to work with the states to reform healthcare costs, was one of the few that was opposing the deals, federal-state deals, to try and rein in these costs, and now he's concerned about healthcare costs. It's ridiculous.
We're way over time. We've got to go. I'm sorry. Ed Husick, Kelly O'Dwyer, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
David. Thanks,
See you, Kelly.
We'll talk